Welcome to Connect with County Leaders. Here's your host, Bryan Hill.
Hello and welcome to Connect with County Leaders. I'm Bryan Hill. On this edition of my podcast, I'm joined by Coach Tony Skinn. Let me say that again. Coach Tony Skinn, men's basketball coach at George Mason University, who is back for his second season at Mason, as well as his second appearance on this podcast. Coach, welcome back and good to see you.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having me back. Time flies, doesn't it?
You know, it does. I remember you coming in, doing your podcast with me, coming to practice, watching you play up-tempo, aggressive style of basketball, and then you get to the 20-win season, which is a marker in George Mason history because I always talk to the president once the coach gets to 20 wins. Wink, wink. So then I'm looking at your roster, and I said, wait a minute. Tony's got 9 new players.
Yeah.
In this stage of NIL, because I'm assuming this is NIL, man, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, no, I think there's 2 parts to it. You know, you look at over the last 2 or 3 years, we've lost some really, really good coaches. Obviously, we've lost some for personal reasons, but I think it's safe to say we've also lost some of those guys just because of the landscape and, you know, where college basketball is trending towards. I feel for those guys, but at the same time, this is kind of what I know as a coach. I haven't been around long enough to feel some sort of way about it as a competitor. You know, it is what it is, and we just got to be able to, you know, be progressive and adapt to it. And, you know, getting the job in year 1, knowing what I had to do with this roster, you know, I kind of got a good taste of what that feels like. And then again, this is just what it is. You're constantly recruiting your guys, but you're also in the back of your head knowing what the landscape provides. And once that season is over, it's not time to then think about how to get better. It's about time to you got to learn how to regroup and then figure out how to just in a short time get better with the new group that you have. But it helps when you have guys like Darius Maddox, you know, guys like Jared Billups, Austin Ball, Woody Newton, who laid that foundation and came back and have a feel of what that locker room and culture looks like, and they're able to transition to new guys. And so while it feels very redundant in new faces, it was a little bit easier in just trying to get where we need to get to, which, you know, I think we're in a decent spot this year.
Well, let me just say this to everybody that's listening. So you have Auburn, Siena, Oklahoma State, Iona, University of Massachusetts Lowell, Siena again, Florida Gulf Coast, that guy's a player, East Tennessee State University. It's going to be good because this is his first year really, but he was here last year understanding the culture. As you spoke about Darius Maddox from Virginia Tech, who is really the glue, the scorer, the leader. And then you got guys from England, guys from Slovenia. I mean, Coach, you got a crazy recruiting budget.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a crazy recruiting budget. I would just call that having a very well-connected staff. You know, that's why when I got the job, the most important thing is to find guys that were, you know, like-minded like myself. I consider myself one of the better recruiters in the country. And so handpicking my staff was very, very important. You hear certain names over time in the business, and we put together a really, really good group. And so that connection has no limitations in location or demographic, international. And so we were able to get a bunch of different guys from different places. Obviously, it helps when you're demographically in the DMV.
That's right.
You get a ton of kids who go to other places across the country. When it doesn't work out or when they're looking for something different, all signs lead to local schools like George Mason. And so we were able to obviously capitalize there. But again, you know, we've got guys from all different type of stops, a lot of older guys, a lot more experienced guys. I think we've got 5 guys that are now going into their 5th year. So we're a lot older, but I'm happy with this team.
Well, you were top 60 nationally in the offseason, right? That's unprecedented because we haven't been that high since 2010, 11, if I'm not mistaken. You finished last season as a top 100 national program for the first time, again, since 2010. The question I have is, as you're looking on building that momentum and continue to grow this program this season, who are going to be the guys that step up for you right now, and who are the ones that are going to be percolating up? Because it's not who you start the season with, it is who you end the season with. So give me a little.
I'll say this, man, you know, and again, I don't want to speak too prematurely, but I've been very, very blessed to have no injuries thus far. You know, things that it hurts you sometimes before you even get a start. And we've been very, very fortunate through 2 competitions now. We went to Drexel for a close scrimmage, and then we obviously played at home against St. Mary's, and, you know, we were okay. And so the names that you guys know about, you know, the Darius Maddoxes, who is one of the most elite players, I should say shooters in the country. He's top 10 in the country in his respective field in shooting the 3. Zach Anderson, who's a guy that, you know, regardless of what level he would have went to, he would have been able to do what he needs to do, which is really stretch the floor at 46% from 3, a department we struggled in last year. If we make 4 or 5 more threes, just total, you know, we've probably got 3 or 4 more wins, and 3 or 4 more wins, we win the league in year 1. And so obviously Jalen Haynes, a guy who, you know, was arguably one of our better players in practice every single day last year, but unfortunately I couldn't use him. Right. He's gonna be a load. He's a mismatch problem. I could 4-5 him. I can do a lot of different things offensively and defensively with him. KD Johnson, who's got a big time reputation. He's, you know, played over 120-something games at the highest level in the SEC. He's been part of a really good team that won their league, and so he's got experience, and he's got a certain tenacity that I think can help us, especially defensively. You know, I want to be able to press and get after it a little bit more and actually apply what the Patriot pressure actually means. Yeah. We didn't exactly have that personnel last year. But we've got a couple guys like, you know, Braden O'Connor, who's really shown that he can play multiple positions. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I got some expectations for certain guys. You know, Jared Billups has put in more vitamin hours, which is something we kind of use as a parameter of who's spending time, you know, outside of the time that they're spending with us. He works so hard, almost to the point where you've got to tell him, you know, rest is just as important in what we do. You know, Woody Newton, who's taking it personal with the way that we ended the season last year, where he helped us get to that 20-win stretch. And so, you know, big Gio Emaruju, who's, you know, he's as big as anybody that you're going to see at the college basketball level. He is a hard worker. He's physical. We've got what we call the PR system, which really gives you a point for everything positive that you do, and, you know, a negative point for all the things that you're not supposed to do. And he leads that category every single day. And so you start going down the line. Jeremiah Quigley, who's, you know, he's a bunny rabbit. He's a guy that you can't stay in front of offensively. He brings a little bit more tenacity. He averaged 9 and 4 as a freshman at Iona. Yeah. That's pretty good for a freshman. Yeah. And so Austin Ball, who's obviously, you know, a household name that came in and helped us win some games last year. He's gotten better defensively. And so I've got a good problem in October because I just ran off, you know, 10, 11 guys. You know, I've got to figure out what that rotation looks like, you know, pretty quickly.
Well, I know you're going to get there. Yeah. Because you open up with one of the toughest schedules I've seen George Mason play. Yeah, you might play North Carolina A&T. No disrespect to North Carolina A&T. Marquette and Duke. Yep. I mean, dude, what are you thinking, man?
You know what? Don't take this the wrong way. I mean, some coaches schedule to not get fired. Not Tony Skinn. I hear you. I'm a competitor. When I recruit these guys, we talk about the level of competition. We talk about playing with a chip on their shoulder. I'd be the wrong type of recruiter if I didn't honor that in scheduling. And sometimes scheduling is really hard. Sometimes you don't get those games. We were fortunate enough where I got the call from Duke, and, you know, for me it was a no-brainer. And so I was happy we were able to get that game done in the week of finals, which is really tough for us and something that we've never really done. And so shout out to our, you know, administration, Marvin Lewis, for, you know, making that happen. But then again, an MTE that a lot of times you go play at a neutral site. You know, shout out to Shaka Smart for allowing us to play in that MTE, because a lot of times, you know, at that level, the Big East level, the Power 5 level, you know, they don't want an A-10 team coming to the MTE. And so he obviously wants to challenge his team, and we're up for the challenge. So I'm happy we're able to get those games. But those games are important. But the most important thing is how you start off, and that's on November 4th against North Carolina Central.
Now, I'm going to say this to you. You mentioned the new AD, Marvin Lewis. He's not new. He came in the same year you came in. I've known Marvin for some time. The first conversation I had with Marvin was specifically about NIL. And when I look at NIL and what you've done, what you've been able to do at George Mason with that transfer portal, explain. You said a couple things about how it's changing basketball. Age-wise, it's helping George Mason. But how else is it changing basketball? I
mean, it's changing it at a high level. You can't ignore it. I think the one thing that we do a really good job of is, you know, you go through your ups and downs of the season ends, and in the past you were able to just kind of take a deep breath and focus and just, regroup. That's not the case now. Now you're jumping on, 2 or 3 or 4 Zooms per day. You're going through, it's speed dating at a high level. And, the one thing that's non-negotiable for me is I have a no tolerance for if the first conversation is about NIL or if it's about money. I immediately just kind of turn and tune out. I'll stay on the Zoom respectfully, but in my mind, I already know the direction that I'm going. And so there's a delicate balance of being able to go to an institution, being able to be a part of a program that can help you develop both on and off the court and give you a chance to play at the highest level. But then also, obviously, taking advantage of your NIL opportunities. We have a very, very honest NIL collective. Mm-hmm. There's a dark side of NIL that a lot of people don't like talking about, the conversations of, what we'll give you when you get here and what actually happens. When that list comes out, George Mason and Tony Skinn will not be on that list. And so we try to be open and honest with our collective and, obviously our NIL conversations.
Tony, you bring a different type of passion, a different type of energy. George Mason's very lucky to have you. But when we talk NIL, don't you see that this has changed? So I'm just gonna go back a couple of years. I was doing a podcast in Alfred University, and they were like, Mr. Hill, when did you graduate? And I'm looking at, I was on a team that had the 25-3 record, best record in history. And I'm like, yeah, it's 38 years ago. Yeah. And they were like, wow, you're old. Right. He said, what did you get for playing basketball? I said, I got an education, I got four square meals a day, and I got 4 pair of basketball shoes. Yeah. Today, we talking money.
Yeah.
You said, if I heard you correctly, soon as they start talking money, before you get your pitch out, you're pretty much checked out. Mm-hmm. How often does it happen with the players that you talk to?
Well, that's the part of recruiting where, we're venting guys as much as humanly possible before we even get on these calls. These conversations come up. But again, there's a major, major part of this where it's a two-way street. You've got to be, because here's the thing, a lot of guys are in the portal, and a lot of guys should not even be having a conversation about money, right? And so that's the first thing from an eval standpoint. Yeah. And believe it or not, there's a lot of jumping in the portal to go see if I can go get money and a lot of misdirection. And so engaging in some of these conversations, it's something that, for the most part, again, having a no-nonsense attitude and a no-nonsense staff, demographically, the help that we get, they kind of know who to bring to us and who not to. Okay. And then once we get past the stage of, okay, what's this kid really about? What's his family about? What's more important to them? There's times where you get blessed and you get into a conversation and, guys don't even bring money up. Okay. And I'll always credit Darius Maddox for this. You're talking about a guy he was ACC MVP a couple years back at Virginia Tech, right. A guy that came to George Mason because he wanted more, a guy that averaged 14 points a game in the A-10. Those guys, they go in the portal and they go get, $400,000. But he stayed the course. And so I knew that when we recruited him because of the type of individual that he was, the type of family that he came from. And there's a delicate balance of, okay, this is where I need to go to make sure I can maximize my opportunity as a basketball player, so then maybe I can play for another 8 to 9 years, post-college. And so there's a delicate balance. Yeah. And, like I said, it's speed dating and trying as much as possible to work with the information that you have, but then also work within your budget and being honest. Yeah. And so, we've been very, very fortunate, even though we were picked, and I feel like I'm ranting now, but this is my NIL venting session, I guess you could say. We were picked, not in the league, but before that came out in the summer, just our off-season acquisition, I guess you can say. We were picked 4th, I think, as far as the talent level and like the star, I guess if you rated each team and who they brought in. And so we were in the top 4 of our league, and it's a 15-team member league. And so I think a lot of people think our NIL budget is, top 4 in the league. It's not. No. It's not. And so I'll credit, obviously our foundation. I'll credit myself and my staff and just the way we kind of grind away. And so, it's not a comfortable space that we're in, but, as a head coach, a young head coach, I'm up for it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to credit you and your staff because I know what your budget is. And this is one of the things I talked with Marvin Lewis about. There's 2 things I gave him. One is y'all need a salary cap and just I don't care if it's from George Mason to Kentucky. I said, y'all need to level the playing field because you're all playing for the same thing. And this is ridiculous. And then I said, or create it as an annuity. If you're making money off of the player, in 4 years, that player gets the sum of the annuity that has extrapolated over the 4 years. You can give him that, or you can invest it for him so he has an annuity like the Allen Iverson clause at 55, you're not broke. I said, we got to get creative in this and make this a mutually beneficial way of going forward. You can keep that student athlete as an ambassador, or he can or she can just keep moving around, because don't think this is just happening in men's basketball, because University of Miami done very well with taking women's basketball players all over the place. So I'm just going to, that's my soapbox.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you're the Fairfax County exec, right?
Oh, man, stop that. That's why I only get a text back from you. Never mind. All right, so Mason basketball is a big part of Fairfax County entertainment schedule during the winter months, and I know tickets start at only $10.
Yep.
How does the support of the community help your program succeed? Now, I'm going to say this. 2 prior coaches, I said, every time you get a full house, that's money going to Fairfax County that comes back to you in a different way from the sales tax, because the governor has to send it back to you as part of your state appropriation. So how can we be more help to you?
Yeah, I think the community is just as important as anything else that we do. I talk and preach Patriot pressure all the time, and Patriot pressure is not just the way we play and our style of defending. Patriot pressure is, we've got 18 home games at EBA. The more pressure we can put on our opponents, the louder that place can get. It makes it a lot tougher for our opponents. That's part of the winning culture, and I think we're trending in the right direction. We don't beat Dayton last year on our home floor if that place wasn't rocking, and so the expectation this year is to just be able to get that type of a support system.
So you guys, let me just say this for everybody. You're absolutely right. You were 20-12 overall last year. You had 14-3 overall at home. You were 8-0 non-conference play, which is where you want to be. Those 3 losses you had at home were points away. They weren't blowouts. They were points away. Like you said earlier.
3 games. Don't remind me. I'm trying to cleanse my mind of last year. But VCU, it was a 1-possession game. We went 0-16 or 0-18 from 3, something that hasn't been done in a decade plus. We were winning against Duquesne for 39 minutes and 30 seconds. And then, St. Bonaventure, no, not St. Bonaventure, but Loyola Chicago. A certain individual heard a certain thing and just went and did something different, and it cost us a corner 3. And so you win 1 or 2 of those possessions, and we're almost flawless at home. So that's how important it is. You can't win at a high level if you don't protect the home floor.
So you just mentioned VCU, you mentioned Loyola Chicago, you mentioned Dayton, you mentioned Duquesne. Now, the A-10 conference is strong. The problem that I see with the A-10 is that they don't give us enough respect, because you play a tough schedule. The competition this year, who are going to be the top teams in the A-10? Are they going to be the perennial top? Because, a couple of years ago, St. Louis was up there. The Billikens were like legit, and they could still play. Who are going to be the?
I let the experts pick that.
That's not us.
That's not something that I've always been a big believer in, controlling what you can. But obviously, you're going to have your household names that have, some coaches that have been doing this thing for a long time. Anthony Grant at Dayton. Dayton's always going to be a marquee, stop.
But they lost one of their players to Kentucky. How much money?
It did, but again, they also brought in some pretty good players as well. Zed Key, who was at Ohio State when I was there, he's a load in the front court. Posh Alexander, who's as tough on the ball as anybody in the country. And so I expect Dayton to be right up there. And then St. Louis, there's a lot of expectations for St. Louis. Obviously, he was very, very successful at Indiana State, and so he brings in a lot of experience as a coach. But, when it's all said and done, George Mason is going to control what George Mason can control. And the one thing I'll say is, like I said, I think we've got a chance. We wouldn't schedule the way we scheduled if I didn't think that this team was going to be competitive. We've got Duke, we've got Marquette, we've got East Carolina on the road, we've got Tulane at home, we've got James Madison on the road, and so that's a competitive schedule, and that's as good as it gets in our league.
So now you talk about the competitive schedule. What are the goals for Tony Skinn's George Mason Patriots this year?
Yeah, that's to put a banner up. That's to put a banner up.
Can I be in the picture with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you speak it into existence, you could definitely.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. But no, that's what the expectation is. That was my expectation when I took over this program. It helps when you're able to, in year one, make it, almost possible. And like I said, if you take 1 or 2 games back, you win 11, 12 games, you got a chance to win the league. And so, I want to win the league. I want to win the league, and I want to be dancing in March. That's the expectation, and that's the goal, and that's what we're working towards every day.
To win the league, you can do it 1 or 2 ways. You can have a flawless regular season, or you can be at the A10 tournament, which is from March 12th to the 16th, and root on the George Mason Patriots at the Capital One Center. I am Capital One Arena. I'm happy that we're back home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because going to Brooklyn was like, that was not something I wanted to do. So you kind of mentioned a lot of the things that it's going to take to get there.
Yeah.
What are the things that you didn't mention? Because it's a long grinding of a season. I'm like, look, you have 17, 18 home games. You're on the road at Duke. You're on the road at Marquette. If you can think of one thing that you're really trying to pinpoint in the season to make sure it happens every game, what is that?
I would just say our overall connectivity.
Okay.
The more connected teams, they get through some of those situations better.
Yeah.
And you can be connected for 2 or 3 practices, right? Or you could be connected for 7 or 8 practices. Once you're able to build that habit, which we're still getting to, it helps you because, again, when you play every 48 to 72 hours, it's easy to just kind of forget what the main thing is, right? And so as you look at our non-conference, the one thing that I'm trying to make sure these guys don't forget is, we're playing Duke and Marquette, but we've got 11 other games to play.
That's right.
And so I know everyone's excited. I'm just excited. I can't wait to get to those places, but the teams that we're playing, they need and demand that respect. And so staying connected and taking care of business one game at a time is the one thing that we can't allow any type of slip-ups in non-conference. The games we're supposed to win, we have to win them. And we've just got to be able to build on that.
So I'm going to do this for you again. Whenever you send me a text, I'm going to get as many kids there as I can. So, Tony, is there anything you want me to do as we close or say as we close this podcast? Because I'm going to tell you, I love coming to the gym. I love talking to you. I need more text back and forth, though. I just want to let you know. I'm putting it out there.
I got you. He's putting me on blast.
I'm putting you on straight up blast. Anyway, anything else you want?
No, I appreciate you bringing me back on here, man. This is, anytime I can get in front of, especially the community to just talk about our program, talk about our university, I'm all for it, and I appreciate you giving us that platform. And, again, this is a very, very, very long season, and that support is needed throughout our community. And so I appreciate you having me on.
Well, the only thing I'm going to say to you, young man, is take care of you during the season. Take care of you. Take care of your health. Take care of mental health.
Yep.
Take care of your coaches. I know a couple of them. You got a new one that came in from New York.
Yep, from House to Surge.
Surge.
Yep.
That's my guy,
Yep.
Steve. My guys. So
Yep.
just take care of them. Is Lewis still with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd probably be bald-headed if Lewis Hennett lives me, because those guys are great.
Well, you tell them all I said hello. I'll see them soon. And that will do it for this episode of Connect with County Leaders podcast. My thanks to you, Tony Skinn, men's basketball coach at George Mason University. And thank you for being here today. I look forward to talking with you again next month on the next Connect with County Leaders. And Tony, again, thank you very much. I know you got a busy schedule. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks for having me on.
It's my
pleasure.
pleasure, brother.
Thank you.
All right, now.